Hi everyone, welcome to Color and Cities. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm delighted to see so many of you here, international folks, for this international roundtable co-hosted by Color de Life and Color Marketing Group. Before we begin, just a few practical points to ensure a smooth sessions for everyone. As this roundtable is being recorded and will be replayed on YouTube, we kindly ask you to turn off your camera and keep your microphone muted during the discussion. You'll be able to activate your microphone during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Feel free to post your questions in the chat at any time during the discussion. We'll collect them and address them together during the Q&A. Just to briefly outline today's agenda, we'll start with a short introduction, followed by the roundtable discussion with our speakers, then a Q&A sessions, and of course I will do a short conclusion. First of all, for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Marion Lamarque. I'm French. I'm a designer and an artist, deeply passionate about color and strongly motivated by sharing best practices around its use. I truly believe we need to live in a more colorful world because color is the first and most powerful driver for positive emotions. I'm the founder of Color de Life, which is an agency, also a network of color experts. It's a consultancy specialized in 360 color strategies. We advise and we train marketing, design, communication, architecture, and sales team. We want with them to co-create color strategies that increase, of course, product and space desirability, brand value, but also profitability. And our method is based on awareness and education, like today, on collective creation, close collaboration, feedback and mentoring. We have four main areas of expertise. First, it's marketing, communication, brand ID, then product and spatial strategies, and we work also on method and on processes. But Color de Life, as I explained, is not only an agency, it's also a network of experts. We train teams in color design and color management. We want to improve both performance and motivation. So we organize events also to raise awareness of the impact of color and imagine its role in the future. And today we'll do it with Color Marketing Group. Our network brings together designers, architects, artists, scientists, engineers, and dye specialists. What unites us all members of Color de Life, it's a shared conviction. We believe that color should be good for the person who sees it, but also good for the person who produces it, and of course respectful of the environment. If you want to know more about Color de Life or join the network, you can, of course, contact me directly. I shared my email address in the chat already. This webinar, as you saw in the invitation, it's a part of Color and Cities series that we launched within Color de Life in 2024. We began this series with Philippe Fagot, who introduced the key challenges of color in the urban environment. Then Adrien Maschino shared the methodology of Atelier 3D Couleurs, A3DC, for developing urban color guidelines. And Anne-Sophie Verriès from Après la pluie paysagiste, she illustrated through projects how she works with color in landscape design. All three talks are available on our YouTube channel, Color de Life Network. The link is still in the chat. Just careful because this previous webinar were in French. For the next step of this series, we wanted to bring an international perspective. That's why I reached out to Montara Defi, who's president of Color Marketing Group, and together we imagine this roundtable discussion. Montara, mind you introducing yourself?
Sure. First of all, Marion, first of all, and always, thank you so much for organizing this international roundtable, which is bringing together representatives of CMG from all regions, Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America, and North America. And so this type of international roundtable is something that we are planning to do more of this year, collaborating with other entities so that we can bring in rich color content to our audiences. And so when it comes to me, I define myself as a color archaeologist. And so my academic studies were in languages, marketing, and international business, but I spent many years in the chemicals and coatings industry. And that's where I learned how to apply my passion of color or my passion for color in a more structured way. I have been a member of CMG for almost 20 years, with the last 9 years as a member of the board and as president since 2025. I lived and worked in many countries and continents, and I am currently based in Canada out of Toronto. I run a color consultancy, which is called Color Landing Studio, and I focus on color strategy and color education.
Thank you. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about Color Marketing Group.
Absolutely. So Color Marketing Group, or CMG as we call it, it is a not-for-profit organization, and it was founded in 1962 at a time when color was not yet seen in the way we see it today, which is a marketing or selling tool. So our founders, three individuals, which I always like to mention them, Mr. Everett Cole and Robert Eppinger and Dr. Louis Graham, they really made a very bold decision. They believed at the time, and that's 1962, that color deserved its own space. And then later on, Louis Graham became the first CMG president. So these three individuals created this organization that brought together color scientists, technicians, professionals, and what they wanted to do is to solve real technical and merchandising problems and challenges across all industries. And so after that, CMG grew really very quickly. And at one point, it operated a physical office, and we had a very large paid staff that were mainly serving over 2,000 members. But nowadays, we no longer have a physical office, and CMG is 100% operated by its members. And all the work is done through volunteer leadership. And so each executive and board member plays a very defined role to make sure that we continue delivering value to our membership.
And who are Color Marketing Group members?
Our members are color and CMF professionals, but also enthusiasts, and they come from different backgrounds. I can name design, manufacturing, architecture, pigments, coatings, materials, visual communications, academia, and we also have students. But what truly defines CMG is the diversity of our membership and the depth of the research that goes behind the directional color forecast, which look usually 2 years ahead.
And could you tell us a bit more specifically on the process behind this directional forecast?
Sure. So the forecast is research-based and is developed by professionals who bring their insights from their industries and also from the real world outside of their industries across 4 geographical regions. And so the forecasts are not really like trend reports in the conventional sense. And so they are strategic tools that are built on the collective intelligence that the participants bring. And the way I see it is they support long-term planning and stronger co-decision making as we are navigating these complex ecosystems nowadays. And so the process itself was developed and refined by CMG members over, I would say, decades of experience. And so the forecasting season runs from January through May. During this time of the year, those 5 months, the people that come together, they share their research, they discuss the research, they challenge each other, and we do this through what we call chromosome workshops, and they are made in person or in virtual formats. And so the result of those workshops that are happening in each region, they form the regional forecast. And so each region is required to deliver 3 color stories, 16 directional colors. And at the end of the season, all the regional forecasts, they come together into what we call the World Color Forecast, which is announced at CMG Virtual Reveal. And this year, the reveal will be on August 27 and 28. So if you are curious to know more about it, you can come in and watch it. And so I just wanted also to know that these directional colors that are part of the forecast, they basically not based on our preferences, but they rather capture the imprint of the societal shifts, and they are proposals and can be adapted to your industry, to your market segment, to your geographical area. So it's not like a dictation, it's more a proposal that can be adapted.
And on this specific topic of the forecasting chromosome, how can the audience learn more about this?
Well, all the forecasting events that we have are usually published on CMG's website. And I don't know if Nicole is here, our VP Marketing and Communication. If she is with us, I will ask her to share the link in the chat so everyone can have easy access to the information. If not, I will post it myself.
Well, thank you. We'll see in the chat if the link is coming. Now, or we will add it during the roundtable. Now, I would like to invite our speaker to briefly introduce themselves. Cynthia, you want to start?
Yes, Marion. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Fragoso. I'm from Mexico, representing Latin America. I'm also a CMG member. And well, I'm an interior designer. And today I lead the color studio in Sherwin-Williams, Mexico.
Thank you. Laura?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Tofts from Zimbabwe, and I own a company called the Showroom Collective. My passion is color and texture and pattern, and my business links perfectly in there. I sell coatings, and in particular specialist coatings that can create textures and are quite versatile in their applications, as well as using other materials like cementitious-based coatings as opposed to traditional acrylics. And also wallpaper, we're very strong on that. We have great partnerships, for instance, with Robin Sprong, which I think a lot of Europeans and Americans may be used to that brand. Look forward to new things coming from them this year. And my goal, which I didn't know was going to be in my life plan, it seems, is to get Africa more involved in the global discussions and more involved in participating on trends of color, because prior to this they haven't been involved. So I would like to say I am the pioneer now by default. And thank you to CMG, of which I am a member now of a few years, for the support on this journey. It's very exciting, and along the way, of course, I learned so much.
Thank you, Laura. Xiaojing?
Hello, I'm Xiaojing. I'm the strategy director for Young Design. So Young Design is an industrial design company. We are the only design company to work for Boeing in China. And I'm also the chief editor of the China Design Trends report. For the past few years, I've been facilitating the CMG color commercial groups in Asia.
Thank you. And Nina?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Nina Karsten. I work in Hamburg in Germany for the company Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz does coatings for aviation, automotive, and general industry. I have a degree in product design and also in journalism. I have also studied cultural sciences and gender studies. So there are lots of things that raise my interest, and I'm quite curious about. In Mankiewicz, we work a lot with customers all over the world, which is, I think, the thing I enjoy most about the job is, that you see lots of different people and lots of different cultural backgrounds. And I mostly work in automotive. We work with very small projects on color developments, but also at Mankiewicz we make a color palette regularly that we then show to our customers worldwide. And for CMG, I've been involved, I'm not even sure. I think at least 10 years, probably more. And and I very much enjoy the exchange within that organization.
Thank you. Unfortunately, you have seen that Laura Di Fabio was unable to join us today. But Montara, feel free to answer the questions to represent North America today. So let's begin our roundtable with the first question. In your region, which sociocultural or economic or political, industrial, or even climatic factors have the strongest influence on today's urban color choice? I'm wondering what's happening in Latin America about this. Cynthia?
I love this question because color is everywhere in Latin America. And, we have like a unique chromatic intensity, and I think we have natural sensitivity to color. So naturally, our cities are full of bold color, chromatic combinations, and bright buildings. But today, Latin America is having a particular worldwide impact, and it is in a continuous global rise. So it's very interesting how in urban design we are like reinterpreting these colors of our culture with vibrant color palette in urban designs that draws inspiration from nature and local traditions. So it's very interesting how we can see in urban design we're blending tradition with modernity, cultural heritage with contemporary trends. And we're like in a moment of refreshing alternatives of cross-cultural collaboration. So we're still looking forward to use bold colors in urban design in a particular way, like enhancing some architectural elements. We can still see deep connection to cultural heritage, a lot of usage of local materials that are merging with new technologies.
Thank you, Cynthia. Laura, what's the point of view of Africa?
Thank you. So it always comes as a surprise when I say this, and a few people on the group will have already heard me say this, but Africa is more restrained with color use than you imagine, in particular in the south. They're a lot more muted and reserved. and a lot of inspiration from nature. But even more so than that, we've tend to have taken our lead from Europe and the States, but more particularly from Europe. And a surprising amount of grey is seen in urban color and architecture. And I sell paint, and I can tell you I'm still selling grey paint this very moment in time at the office. And as a person who's passionate about color, this is hugely frustrating, and also knowing where we could gain inspiration from within our region. And I have actually a stat here for you. I just remembered to download it. You know, there was a time where there was a big exit from Zimbabwe, and it's happened in many other African countries as well, to Europe because of difficulties with economy or politics or whatever it might be. And actually, there are between 3 and 5 million Zimbabweans living outside of Zimbabwe in the diaspora. So, and they are people that earn a lot of money and send it back home. So if they're investing in, buildings or homes, they also have a say on what it's going to be painted and how it's going to be decorated. So we see a lot of influence from that, where we'll be dealing with clients that are Zimbabwean and investing in Zimbabwe, but sending the money from abroad, and they want it to be like something they saw in Europe. So it's a bit of a dichotomy and a bit of a sad story in a way, especially for me. But I have noticed in the last 2 years, there's been more of a shift to people coming back home, and also now realizing that they have more interest in their in traditional culture and traditional design. And we're getting asked more and more for things that are inspired by Zim, colors, textures, wallpapers, and a lot of designers, wallpaper designers, are now springing up. So I hope that this trend now continues, where the local influence is being seen more in especially in architecture and in interiors and in color choices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Xiaojing, in China, what are the main influence?
Well, I would have to say that behind the color choice, that poverty has been the number one concern, because for recent years, poverty is not selling well in China. And government have tried everything. They have every policy to sell the house. The latest standard is called the fourth generation residence, which will set a new standard for premium housing. For example, it's at least 100 square meter. You're supposed to have a garden at each flat. So along of these new standards for housing is welcoming nature in the house. Therefore, windows, green plants, balconies are all welcome. And people are also paying more and more attention to wellness and relaxation. For example, everything that's relevant to spa or smart toilets have been very well selling in the past few years. This was a picture from the store, which sells the Seoul spas in China. You can see the walls are decorated with the Himalaya salt, which feels pink. And some of our color inspiration are from that. For example, you can see on the left is a very dominant home appliance brand, and they combine the matte glass together with these pink Himalaya salt colors in their products. Also, I think it's influence from manufacturing industry as well. For example, China has been famous for its new energy car and mobile phone. So a lot of these CC products or new energy car products are using this kind of colors. For example, colors between the gray, between pink and silver. So it's a color that is between a few different tones. Yeah, that's what I want to share. Thanks.
Thank you, Xiaojin. And Nina, you want to answer?
Of course, it's interesting to hear, especially from Latin America, about all the colors. While we, especially I think in Germany, we are more, kind of conservative or very careful with the use of color in buildings. Of course, Europe is big and it's kind of difficult, to have an overview. So I would, speak for the region where I'm from and what I can see. So I'm from the North Germany, and in Germany, of course, after the Second World War, lots of old buildings were gone and had to be replaced quickly in the 60s and 70s and so on. So it's in still, I think the point nowadays is with lots of European cities that, of course, the density is getting higher and higher. So now, I think the problems, or let's say the goals with planning of the cities and what's happening in the cities, number one, getting more people into the cities, still keeping the identity of the cities there. So, and of course, climate change is a huge topic. So it's I think so. It's more there's a lot of, let's say, calculation. You really have to take all these things in consideration, and we're not so open with, very strong colors. So I have something to share. I hope it's going to work, and maybe it's easier to explain what I want to say with this. Can you see this here?
It will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so the first thing, and I can see it on my work today every morning, that is by Saarbrück Hutton, the architectures, a building called Woody. It's a student apartment building. So, this kind of brings it all together. Lots of people in buildings on small space, and then again, the usage of renewable material. So, that's for sure something that is something at the moment, what's happening at the moment. These kind of buildings, also high-rise buildings in wood. So the wooden surfaces, which change over time and get grayish, this is definitely a color that I would expect more also in the future to see. Right next to it, even from the same company, though, we have which is the Agency for Ecology in Hamburg. And Saarbrück Hutton is very famous for lots of very interesting buildings with the use also of, a very delicate use of colors. And also in Berlin, there are very nice buildings. So yes, there are these kind of highlights, but for sure, these are highlights, I would say. Color is also seen here in a new area of the city, which is called Harbor City, the Hafen City. And this is a new train station. So it's not like the Germans don't like color, but in the outside, we're a little bit more, I would say, cautious. But this is a very interesting, I think, new train station with light installation and so on. So this is happening also in the urban areas. And the last one is, sorry, I hope this works for you this way. This is a bunker. It's in the middle of basically downtown Hamburg, and it's a landmark, and it's supposed to be there, as a I don't know the word. Let's say landmark. But what they just did recently is they put further stories on top and added all these trees to it and all these greenery. So of course, while the city is getting more and more dense, still there is this aim of putting green and green and green as much as possible into it. But so this is something that of course, this is very special, but yeah, that's kind of the compromise at the moment that's happening. And the color green is really, of course, important to not disappear out of the city while the density is getting higher. Yeah.
Thank you. I have another question. I have many questions. The second one would be, have you recently observed any significant shift? We were talking about this with Laura a bit, or disruption in resident color preference, and what do you think is causing them? Xiaojing? You're on mute. You're mute.
So in China, we have noticed significant shift to brown and red colors. So when I work for clothing brands such as Azul Nobel, that was also shown in their global color trends as well. One of the reasons in China why these two are popular is the concern for outdoor and health. Because since the epidemic, China have entered a boom for outdoor activity. So a lot of the color trend in brown, for example, seem to be relevant to outdoor autumns or natural activity, such as climbing the mountains. So this is just one of the example, one of the colors that we pick in our trend report that combines the pink and the brown color together. It replaced the original brown colors for leathers, for example. And the other trend is red colors. For example, this line of very premium colors combine red, purple, and a little bit brown together. So I believe that maybe fashion brands are behind this trend. For example, Gucci has shown something similar in Milan Design Week in 2025. And suddenly, when we are interviewing people in China, everyone wants the red colors. So it was very influential.
Thank you. Laura, you want to share more about the significant shifts you have seen recently?
Yes, and it's true, as you say, I did touch on that in the previous question because the diaspora has such a strong influence on Zimbabwe. But it's also worth mentioning that when I look back as well on the journey of being sort of connected to the rest of the globe via, either through relationships or through then through social media, I've seen this color trend happening throughout the time in sorry, I lost my way there with the color preferences in the urban areas. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the past. So we had Italian prisoners of war that in Zimbabwe in the beginning of times of Rhodesia. And so there were a lot of Italian architectural influences because when the war ended, they stayed on and the big Italian community formed here. So there was a strong presence of sort of Mediterranean color of houses. And I remember that when growing up. And that sort of disappeared. And as I say, then we went into this influence of the diaspora and the West. But my point of that is I'm trying to think of a time when it came from within. And I can't really think of a time when the colors actually were not disrupted by an outside force. But that is what my mission is now, is to, by bringing the conversation to the table, where are we, what is our identity, and where do we belong in this story? Thank you.
Thank you. And from the Latin America perspective, Cynthia?
Yes, my daily task is making color recommendations to our customers. What I've seen is that bold colors continue gaining preference in resident choice. And this is very influenced by governments investing in tourists. And also in big cities, I have seen that these big buildings are having these shots of color. And it's very interesting because these bold colors are becoming a currency of cultural consolidation, and we're inspired in native past. So Latin America influence is still a powerful force in 2026. And we have seen a very influence focus on reds, orange, and terracottas. And I think we're in the exact moment we are shifting of these great trends, and these global trends are fusing with our local colors in a very interesting way.
Thank you. Maybe another question. In your own project, how do you integrate users' emotional and psychological expectation when you're creating colored environment or color materials or for architecture, I mean, or industry? Maybe Nina?
Well, I can only talk about because I'm not so much into the architecture. I have a lot to do with more with interiors and with surfaces that are on products and so on. But definitely, I think it doesn't really matter in the end. Of course, that is super important, that you really try to feel what would I like to feel, or what would somebody like to feel in that environment, who is in another situation, who has another style. So we in Mankiewicz, when we, for example, work on the color trend boards, we really try to figure out all these different directions, and we really try to go into the situation where where the designers we speak to, who then create, for example, a car. Of course, we have to think what do they have in mind for their customers. So yes, for sure, we really go and deep into, and of course it includes not only color, it includes surfaces. Also, of course, we think about the other materials that that join in such a, I would even say, composition. So yeah, that's super. That's key, I think, to design.
And Cynthia, your point of view?
Yes, and adding what Nina said, I think that I noticed that when our customers have more confidence in the color recommendations and in the sessions, they have a natural sensitivity to color locally, but there are other associations with color rooted in personal and psychological factors, So we first work together to discover their color quality preference, more guided to brightness, saturation, hues. And when they know these, they feel even more confident to reduce the color options to get the accurate one. And in that moment is when they said, okay, I'm not afraid of color. Color is everywhere. And yes, there are customers that still are more safe with grays, whites, and also, but it's there are others that say, okay, just I naturally want these bold colors that are of my culture, and I can put them inside of my interiors, not only urban design.
And Xiaojing?
I always feel that there's a psychology behind the color choice between different product categories. For example, the picture you're looking are the top well-selling colors from the top-selling coating brands in China. I think it's pretty obvious that beige is selling very well in China, and that's for the wall. But very interesting story is that when you have beige for other product categories, such as home appliance, it doesn't work because home appliance are usually made of glass, metal, or plastic. So consumers tend to avoid looking yellow, and therefore they feel old for this kind of industrial material. And I work for appliance quite a long. For example, this year we have a project for appliance trend color with Azure Nobel. And you can see the trend color we picked. Beige is not included in the trend color because we try to avoid that the customers might feel that the industrial materials are getting old. And that's not a very positive feeling for new products.
And Laura?
Yes, so I love this question. I often call my job marriage counseling. And I think a lot of people in our industry could relate. A lot of the fellow consultants, you sort of have the ping pong match either between the husband and the wife or the architect and the interior designer, whatever it might be. And this is a great moment, I always feel, to just listen and be still. So while all the chaos is going around, this is your moment as a specialist in your field to be still and to listen to what everybody is really saying and to take note and say as little as possible. And then from there, it's very simple, especially with experience, to figure out what is needed in this space now or in these spaces. Is it a calming influence? Or do we need something that's going to stimulate creativity? Or do we need a bit of a more feminine punch in there to bring a bit of balance in? And what are the spaces being used for, of course? And then without fail is taking the time to walk around the project, if possible, while no one is there. And now feel into the space. How is it in the morning light? How is it in the evening light? And do we need to add something more beyond color? Maybe we need texture for whatever reason to create shadow or a softness to the space or create reflection. So it's not just a one-step answer. And it's absolutely my favorite part of my day-to-day business.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Xiaojin, when we talk about global color trends, when they reach the Asian market, for instance, which aspects remain unchanged and which ones are transformed to fit your local context, for instance?
Yeah, we've been talking about the neutral color trends, which have been global because when consumers are not optimistic for the future, they tend to choose something classics. And that's the same psychology behind the color choice in China as well. Well, I have been checking the interior design trends in China for the past decades. And we feel that there are more and more local identity inspired trends in China. For example, based on the social media data, one of the trends is called the Song Dynasty aesthetic, which is inspired by a dynasty that exists in China about 1,014 6 years ago. And it's something retro, but also modern and simple as well, because the Song Dynasty have been the peak for the economic development in China, and it's quite influential. It even influenced Japan's style for wabi-sabi, for example. So again, nowadays, people are picking up this inspiration and they're using it at their home. And I think that neutral colors are quite important in this style. For example, you can see along these walls and this kind of wares and activity. For example, drinking tea, arranging flower, or burning incense are all in neutral colors. But the neutral colors in China come from a little bit different inspiration. For example, China always have a big favor for natural materials, quiet materials, and aesthetics. Therefore, you can see that in interior design, for example, the ceramic, the jade, the stone, the linens, and the bamboo serve as inspiration behind the neutral color choice. For example, the beige, the whites, and the browns. But they just have a little bit different in the inspiration and cultural context. Yeah, here you can see that when we are mixing the colors and the material, they should be in harmony. They should feel natural in terms of the texture. The brown we take, for example, from agar wood, which is an incense that is made of the wooden materials. And then the white color that we pick is from jade, which is immortal and very valuable materials in China. So I think it's very interesting that even though there's maybe some of the color trends are global, they might have different cultural context and texture and materials in China. For example, the jade example that we see here, it was used as a woolen, and it was meant to be premium and immortal.
Thank you. Laura, you have an example, a concrete example to share of an international trend that had to be reinterpreted, to work with your cultural environment?
So it wasn't exactly a trend that's reinterpreted as opposed to having to be completely ignored. So it was a little bit of a twist on the question, but I felt it was a valuable contribution nevertheless. And it goes again to the gray story, excepting it's now the anti-gray. So we have a very strong religious following in Zimbabwe. Contributes a huge portion of the population, a Christian group called the Apostolics. And for them, the use of gray or charcoal in their homes or their businesses is the equivalent of evil. So if you weren't aware of that and you went in to do a color consult, and it did happen to a colleague of mine, not within my business, but in the industry, she did a specification. I said to her, "Are you sure? I just don't know about this with this guy." Because anyway, she was like, no, we're going to go with the charcoal. No. He went crazy because she was totally unaware that he is apostolic and you cannot use those colors in their scheme. So that was a little bit of a twist on your question, but I felt relevant to bring to the party.
You were right. Thank you. Cynthia, I think you have an example too.
Yes, it's a very different example, but I will also share. I bring this example from Brazil. Recently, we have the trend workshop of Latin America, and I really love this project because even it's about sustainability. I think that the plastic industry in 2026 will be shaped by global pressures. And I love this project because, these Havanias flip-flops are very common in our culture, well, particularly in Brazil, but all Latin America. And this is how we transform a story into furniture, unique furniture, flip-flops with history that have been around the world in very, very local stories. Then we have the result of transforming these life stories in thousands of pairs of Havanians discarded by consumers all the year, and they are collected to make these new spaces. So I think this project really represents a cultural essence in an innovative marketing breaking point.
Thank you. As you have the mic, do you see what do you see as the limits of universal color language? Are there a symbolic association or nuance that remain deeply culture specific?
I think that even colors have a meaning in all the cultures. There are some with a deeper cultural intentions. I think we can be talking about this hours and hours. So I think that the main limit of what you say, the universal color language, are the cultural and personal roots. I've seen that these elements are basic while making color consultations or recommendations. So I think that knowing all these contexts with the right color combination, we can avoid that important cultural color connotations that color can have alone. It's very interesting question.
Thank you. Laura, from the African perspective?
Gosh, this question is exactly what got me on this journey during COVID and the first online color workshop groups that I attended, and it was specifically the color conifer green, and I was like, how can how can people across Africa relate to the color conifer green when they don't know what a conifer tree is necessarily? I mean, obviously with social media, you can look it up, but to really relate emotionally, and it's not that I have an answer to this question that I'm asking myself, because I find myself going round and round in circles, because again, in the first chromosome we held last year, Montaha will know, there was a certain color. I'm not allowed, no, am I allowed to say what the color is? But anyway, the lucky
It's
bean.
fine. You can say it.
I can say it. Good. We're out of the waiting period. So lucky bean, everybody in my region knows what a lucky bean tree is, and it has a distinct red seed, but I don't know how many people on this group could put their hand up and say, I know what lucky bean is. So I don't know if we'll ever get the answer, but I will say it's one of the reasons why I love NCS. And although it takes the charming names and the emotional attachment to the names and the images that it creates in our head and the memories that it evokes about color, but certainly as a scientific color language, NCS I just find to be amazing, because, you know, an almost colorblind person would be able to navigate a client saying, no, I want more of this and less of that in my color.
We organize an event with NCS about the color language of the language of color.
Okay, we will, or you have?
We had
Oh,
September in Paris.
nice.
Maybe another one.
Yes.
Nina, I'll come back to you. Do you identify any color or harmonies or even a chromatic principle that seems to fit everywhere?
Yeah, this question reminded me of one topic we had in one of our collections, and it was called Baltic Shore. And Baltic Shore was stone surfaces. It was a little bit color-wise with what Jing just explained in her last beautiful slides. So it was very neutral, but they all had, you know, kind of a natural stonish, sandy-ish surface on top. And I came back from Denmark with my little bag full of these stones, and you know, the lab created very nice surfaces with these stones, and we had it in the collection, and as I said, called it Baltic Shore. In Baltic Shore board, this topic just, you know, wherever it went, all over the world, if it was China, if it was wherever in Europe, in Brazil, you know, people could relate. Probably not to the shore of Denmark, but they could relate to these, you know, very earthy, natural surfaces. So this was one of our, I think, this is just something that probably because everybody has these, you know, stone and sand is some, you know, very basic material. So probably that's why everybody can relate to that.
Thank you. And Montaha, do you want to conclude with a color marketing group perspective, maybe on this question of things that seems to function almost universally?
Sure. But before I answer this question, I just want to say something. I could not just not say this. I have heard many things being said about color throughout my life, but I never heard that color is evil. So this is just blew my mind away. Like, how can color be evil? And the other thing I wanted to comment on before I answer the question as well is about the lucky bean color, because in Southeast Africa, it was forecasted last year prior to any of the other regions. And I knew about it, but nobody else knew about it. And so when I was in Europe for the chromosome in Europe as well, so the group selected the same color as a color for Europe as well for 2027. And I said, hold on a second, if you're selecting this color, it has to be called Lucky Bean because Southeast Africa forecasted it first. And everybody thought it was a bean that you eat and it's lucky, and like nobody liked the name, and they were saying, no, what name is that? And then we went back and forth with Laura until everybody figured out, okay, this is not really bean to be eaten. This is a tree and it's beautiful and the color is amazing. So at the end, they set up on the same color name as well. So and so now I go back to answer the question. If I understood well, the question was about identifying like color harmonies or chromatic principles
yeah.
that you can see like, or that you can apply universally or pretty much
Exactly.
everywhere. Yeah. So I would like to answer from a CMG perspective, if that's okay, Marion, rather than from a personal perspective. So from a CMG perspective, I probably could think of two main chromatic directions that we see repeat themselves across the regions every year. And so even though their interpretations may change or be different depending on the region, and I wouldn't also say that they are like universal in the strict sense of universal per se, but I would say that they are more like consistent directions, but have different cultural needs or different cultural connotations. And one of these directions is the neutrals that are inspired by nature. And I think Laura spoke about that as well for Southeast Africa. And so, for instance, those earthy tones that are related to minerals or to clay or to sand or to bark or to stone and even to greenery, trees, and what we see in nature. So we see those neutral tones that they appear every year. And probably because they are grounding and they also offer like more stability and longevity, especially when there are times of uncertainty, we lean towards picking and preferring neutral colors. And the other chromatic direction, if I may say, that comes to mind is those muted mid-tone colors, and what I mean by that is those colors that are not crying in your face. They are not like very vibrant, but they are mid-tone. They have usually a long life cycle. And so I see most often than not, the forecast include those colors that in the color space, they sit like in between chromaticness, like high chroma and low chroma, or between warm and cool colors. So they always sit in the middle. It's almost like you are picking, but not picking a color. Like you don't want to be too vibrant, but you don't want to be too, low key. And so we always see those two directional chromatic trends in the forecast. And both these trends are very versatile. They can be used in any market segment. They can be used in any region, but with different interpretations as well. And so I would say that if there were a universal thread in CMG forecast, is not about a specific color. But is about the function of the color. And so it's like how colors, they ground us, or they make us fly, or they balance us, or they connect us emotionally to a specific situation.
Thank you. Before we go to the Q&A session, you can of course write down your question in the chat right now. Is there one of you who wants to add something? A new idea that came during the during the roundtable? Nope. Okay, so let's see what's in the chat. But first, I thank you all for your your sharing of rich insights. Maybe Montara, you have seen a question. I've seen one here from Min Q Ling. Question to the panel. it disappeared. Oops. Much of the way that we interact in cities, on transport, public spaces, restaurants, and in our homes is through devices and app navigation, for instance. How do you think about colors across these different media in a person experience through space? And it's a funny question because this is something we talk about with Adrien Maschino during the second webinar about color in cities. Uh, who want to answer? I can, but is there one of you who want to share his insights?
If I may, I could say that nowadays what we see is that the colors are not really segment specific. So they really travel across segments. So they start in one segment, and depending on the life cycle of that product, so they can start being adopted or seen in one smaller market segment. And then as people see the color and start adopting them. And nowadays, I mean, if we talk about small devices, which are all those portable devices that people carry that are becoming more like a fashion accessory. So yes, if a color starts there, and then eventually you like that color, then you can see it later on in fashion. You can see it in automotive. You can, for instance, I'll give an example about the color green. So the color green, post-pandemic, there was a huge current towards adopting color green, specifically in the CMG forecast. We have seen green becoming more and more forecasted than before. In the past, for the sake of giving some info, in the past, even before the year 2000, the color orange was the most forecasted color of all. And then past, like as we went into the new
Millennial.
Millennial, thank you. After wait 2 seconds, so things start changing, and orange wasn't anymore that color that was of preference. But after the pandemic, we have seen a lot of green popping up slowly, like green, very soft tonalities that look almost white, but they aren't white. And then guess what? More and more now in the last a year and a half, I would say, and so, and going forward, now green started popping up in the automotive industry. And we see now pretty much a lot of companies have introduced or will be introducing soon green cars. And it's not neutral green. It's like forest green, it's a vibrant green, is a very in-your-face green. And we haven't seen green cars for a very, very long time. And so, yes, color is not no longer, I would say, segment specific, because you can't just, in society, you are not living with one segment. You are living surrounded by color, by all these products that have color. And so they have to match each other. So a company XYZ, see company ABC launch that color, they're going to go and introduce a similar color for those companies that don't have a color strategy and they don't introduce colors in advance. They are going to copy each other. I don't know if you see the same thing in the regions, but I speak from a global perspective, that because I am usually knowledgeable of the forecast in advance of everybody else. And so I see those things really playing through. I don't know if that answer Mignon question.
I will continue on the question of Min Kyung Lee. During the webinar in France, Adrien Maschino, he shared the point of view of City Mayor, because since we see very beautiful cities like Colmar, which is in the east of France, a very colorful city, but since we see it through Instagram, it's like Burano in Italy. Then people feel it's very, very saturated because there is all those filters. And when they arrive in the city, they think, oh, in fact, this is not that saturated. So even city mayor, they ask them in their architecture guidelines for cities to raise the saturation of color to be more close to the images you see on screen than in reality.
Interesting, Marion. This reminds me of the colorful mountain in Peru that people share on social media. They make the colors look like wow, but in reality, the colors are not wow.
We have Ren Wang. He said that he has been reading recently about alternative pigments from sources like algae or microbes from bacteria as well, and is asking if this alternative have a lower environmental footprint, even alternative black pigment that can be used in packaging and picked up by LiDAR in recycling system. Is there an interest in exploring this pigment in any segments or markets at scale? Or is the market still not ready yet for this?
That's a huge question, isn't it?
I can say that my customer, they all want to go to this new dyeing processes. Uh, uh, well, they were going the last years, but since the economy got worse, then they want first to have the right color on the right component and as fast as possible and as cheap as possible. But I'm not desperate, and I think all those new processes will be embraced by the industry soon again. From my perspective.
Yeah. If I just can jump in here, I would say the same thing. And I think everybody who works with pigments is definitely right now exploring everything that is, it can be save in CO2 and, save energy and make better materials in the end. It's a huge field, and yes, the price is unfortunately a huge topic as well. So those two are, wrestling maybe at the moment, but I think it's definitely the moment that everybody should be exploring as good as possible. Sure.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the pricing right now, as it is, are in most cases is prohibitive. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that the colors that you can obtain through those pigments are not necessarily your traditional standard colors. So that's another limitation so far. And over time, as Ren wrote, the colors may not have the same vitality than the traditional pigment colors. So these three reasons might be also behind why a lot of companies are taking it step by step and not jumping on it. In addition to the scaling up of the resources, because these pigments are not yet available on a high scale, because the resources where they come from are also not available at a high scale. So that we still see, I predict to still see this going slower than, or at the same pace than it is now, like not really very fast. And also it's dependent on geographical areas. For instance, we see Europe is much more keen to adopt those pigments than in North America.
We have a very specific question from Deb, asking how does I'm jumping, economic confidence influence consumer preference for complexity versus brightness? Is there one of you who want to answer to this? How does economic confidence influence consumer preference for complexity versus brightness? Yes,
I
Xiaoji?
think there's some example. For example, before the epidemic, the mobile phone colors in China are very high in saturation, and they are in gold finish. But that kind of bling bling and high saturated colors are gone. Nowadays, everybody want matte finish, skin finish, suede finish, or muted colors. So I think it's about the economy status because uh, about 15 years ago, it's a boom. We reached the peak for economy accelerations, but now economy is slowing down. So people might not spending that much on new things. Instead, they want things that last for a longer. So that kind of safety concern and conservative buying habits might influence the choice, especially for fashionable products, such as clothing or mobile phone or even furniture pieces. But of course, that's very much for things that last for a long time. I think for small decorated accent colors, it's still a lot of freedom to play. So there are still a lot of highly saturated colors in the accent colors. So if you control the proportion to accent colors, I think it will be fine.
Thank you. We will keep only one question left since time is running, but I would like all of you to answer. If possible, can you please share how we can learn more about how colors are forecast? And I will say, if you want to forecast, don't look what's happening, look on what will happen. So regarding myself, when I was working in the sports industry, I was always looking in which country there will be the main events. And for instance, when it was the World Cup, soccer World Cup in Brazil, of course we knew 2 years before that there will be nice blue, green, and yellow harmony that will be everywhere in the sports factory. And of course, it happens. So I would say for myself, look at what will happen. Nina? Nope. Any one of you wants to answer this one?
I can. Go ahead,
Go
Cynthia.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well,
Cynthia.
adding what you say, Marion, I always say to my, to students or in trainings to look in the streets. You know, I think to learn about colors is looking what is happening on the streets, on the social events, on tourist places. I think these spots are very interesting for looking what people is preferring about color, not only big bands or I think streets are well, for me was the field where color was like, oh, I want to know more about why people culture prefer these colors.
And Montaha, to conclude?
Yeah, I wanted to say that color forecast is a process that you have to follow over the years. You cannot just today say, okay, I'm becoming a color forecaster and I'm going to color forecast. And then, boom, I see blue and green and yellow in the market. So that's going to go into my color forecast. Hey, if you see these three colors in the market, it is not a color forecast. Now they are trending. They have been forecasted 2 or 3 years ago, right? And you see them popping up now because they have been adopted and they are trending. So these will not go into your color forecast, but you can take them as a directional information and say, okay, I have these three colors, how they're going to behave in the next 2 or 3 years, what is going to happen to them, or what other colors are going to come in. So at CMG, we teach, if you want, that if you are forecasting, you really always have to be observing what's going on in society, not only what's going on in the market or what you see in the shopping mall. You have to look at a lot of other things. You have to look at what's happening in society. What are the shifts in economy? What are the shifts in politics? What's happening in innovation? What's happening with technology? In the movie,
period.
exactly. What's happening with the kids at school? What's happening on the street? You have to keep observing and observing and observing and taking notes of that and gathering information. That is what we call your research. So your observational research and insights. And then after that, once you do this over time, then you can see the signals, those signals that pop up. If you see a color really everywhere, there is not a forecast that's already been out there. You have to figure out what is the signal I'm getting and what consumers would want to do with this color going forward. So come to one of Color Marketing Group forecasting workshops. You can learn more about the how to forecast, how to create a forecast, and what colors really go or end up being part of the forecast. But most importantly, why?
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation in the chat. As we come to the end of this webinar, I would like to warmly thank our speakers for the richness and generosity of your shared experience. A big thank you as well to Color Marketing Group and especially to Montaha for this wonderful collaboration. Really a pleasure. Thank you to all of you in the audience for your attention, your thoughtful questions. The replay of this webinar will be available on the Color de Life YouTube channel in a few days. And I hope this discussion has inspired you and given you new perspective on color, on cities, and global practices. So thank you again, and I wish you all a wonderful end of day, whatever the time it is in your region now. So have a nice evening, have a nice afternoon, have a nice morning. See you all.